My name is Seth Granger, and at 64 years old, I learned that the most expensive thing in the world can be the right to love your own grandchildren. About 8 months after I buried my wife, my daughter told me that if I wanted to remain part of my grandchildren's lives, I would need to help financially, so I paid. Month after month, I paid for tutoring, dental work, school expenses, repairs, and a leaking roof. I paid because those two children had become the only reason I still got out of bed every morning. But I had spent 40 years keeping records, checking figures, and noticing when numbers did not make sense. Eventually, the numbers stopped adding up. My grandchildren were still wearing worn-out shoes. The explanations kept changing, the requests kept growing, so I did the one thing I had always been good at. I followed every dollar. What I found was not a school invoice or a repair bill. It was a trail that changed the way I saw my daughter's marriage, my son-in-law, and every payment I had made in the name of family. Before I begin, take a moment to like and subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you are watching from and what time it is where you are. Now let me take you back to a rainy Tuesday, about 8 months after I lost the love of my life. The rain was coming down sideways that afternoon. I remember because I almost did not answer the phone. My house had been quiet ever since Linda passed, but not the peaceful kind of quiet. It was the kind that carried weight. Every room seemed larger without her. Every sound disappeared too quickly. Then Maddie's name appeared on my phone, and my heart did what it always did when my daughter called. It lifted. "Hey, sweetheart," I said. There was a pause, followed by a slow breath. "Dad, I need to talk to you about something." I sat down. Something in her voice felt wrong. It sounded flat and careful, almost rehearsed, as though she were repeating lines someone else had prepared for her. "Trent and I are struggling right now," she said. "Money is tight, tighter than you realize." "Okay," I said. "Tell me how I can help." Another pause. "It's just that if you want to keep being part of the kids' lives, we need you to help out financially." For a second, I held the phone away from my ear, almost as though moving it might change what I had heard. My own daughter, the same girl who had cried against my chest at her mother's funeral, was speaking to me as though access to my grandchildren had become a monthly service. "Maddie," I said carefully, "I'm your father. Since when does seeing Lily and Noah come with an invoice?" "It isn't like that, Dad." Her voice cracked slightly. "Please don't make this weird." I closed my eyes and pictured Lily's gap-toothed smile. I pictured Noah asleep against my chest, one small hand curled into my shirt. I would have done almost anything for those children. "How much?" I asked. She told me. I agreed before I gave myself time to think. Then, just before the call ended, I heard something in the background. A man's voice. Low, quick, and close to her. I could not understand the words, but it sounded like someone feeding instructions from the side of a stage. A few seconds later, Maddie ended the call. I remembered that voice for a long time. The next morning, I transferred the money. Maddie had called it extra tutoring for Lily. I told myself I was investing in my granddaughter's education. I told myself family helped family. I told myself several things because believing them was easier than examining what had just happened. For a few days, the payment seemed worth it. Maddie invited me over that Saturday. The moment I walked through the door, Lily and Noah rushed at me like a small storm. Lily had drawn a picture for me. It showed a stick figure with a gray beard, and above it she had written, "Grandpa, Noah wanted me to carry him." I held him until my arms began to ache, and then I carried him a little longer. I made grilled cheese sandwiches the way Linda used to make them. I read Lily 4 chapters from a book after she had asked for only one. For one golden afternoon, my house, my grief, and every concern in my mind seemed far away. Their laughter filled the rooms around me, and for a few hours, life sounded familiar again. I was drying dishes when Lily climbed onto a stool beside me. "Grandpa," she asked, "what is tutoring?" "It's extra help with school," I told her. "You've been getting some, right?" She wrinkled her nose. "No, I don't get any extra anything." A cold feeling moved across the back of my neck. I slowly placed the plate on the counter. "Maybe it's a new program," I said lightly. "Don't worry about it." She shrugged and returned to her crayons. "Children forget things," I told myself. "They misunderstand adult words." Maybe Maddie had not explained it to her yet. That was what I decided to believe because the other possibilities were too uncomfortable. Trent came home while I was preparing to leave. The children called him Tug, an old nickname from what he liked to describe as his glory days. He walked in smiling, clapped me on the shoulder, and gave me the same confident warmth he gave everyone. "Seth, it was good of you to help us out," he said. "It means everything." "Anything for the kids?" I answered. He nodded while already looking down at his phone. "Anything for family." 3 weeks later, another request came. This one was larger, and the uneasy feeling returned with it. To understand why I ignored that feeling for as long as I did, I need to explain Trent Mallory. Trent was the kind of person who could sell sand in the middle of a desert. He had an easy smile, a firm handshake, and a way of leaning toward people as though they were the only person in the room. When Maddie first brought him home 9 years earlier, he charmed almost everyone except Linda. "There's something hungry behind that boy's eyes," she told me once. "He's always selling, even when nobody is buying." At the time, I dismissed her concern. I thought she was being protective of our daughter. Looking back, I would have given almost anything to tell Linda that she had seen him clearly from the beginning. Trent never kept a job for very long. There was always a major deal about to close, a new opportunity just around the corner, a business partner who had disappointed him, or a company that had failed to recognize his potential. Yet somehow, there had been a new truck in the driveway the previous spring. Somehow, he wore a watch that probably cost more than my first car. I never asked where the money came from. I told myself their finances were not my business. After that first phone call, however, I began noticing things. It was like spotting a stain on a ceiling. Once I knew it was there, I could not stop seeing it. Every Sunday evening, Trent sat with his phone in his hand. His jaw tightened while his thumb moved across the screen again and again. Sometimes he celebrated games no one else in the house was watching. Sometimes his phone buzzed and he disappeared into the garage. One Sunday, I asked what held his attention so completely. "Just fantasy stuff," he said without looking up. "Friendly league." His knee bounced beneath the table. Whatever kind of friendly league it was, it made him sweat. I let the matter go. By then, I felt like a guest in my daughter's life, and I knew the price of keeping my seat. One wrong question might cost me my Saturdays with Lily and Noah, so I stayed quiet. But quiet people still notice things. Quiet people still keep records in their heads. People might wonder why I did not simply refuse the requests. They might ask why a grown man allowed anyone to pressure him that way. To understand my answer, they would have to understand what that year had taken from me. I married Linda when I was 26. We had 38 years together. She knew exactly how I liked my coffee. She knew which of my jokes were intentionally bad, and which ones only became funny because I refused to stop telling them. She knew when I needed company, and when I needed an hour alone in the garage. Then one June morning, she sat at our kitchen table and said she felt dizzy. Before the ambulance reached the corner, she was gone. The house did not merely become quiet after that, it became enormous. I wandered into rooms and forgot why I had entered them. I prepared food for 2 people out of habit and scraped one untouched plate into the trash. Sometimes I woke in the night and reached toward her side of the bed before remembering. My grandchildren became my lifeline. Lily's drawings covered my refrigerator. Noah called me Gumpa, one large, happy word that always made me smile. Their voices gave shape to my weeks. Their visits gave me something to prepare for. When Maddie suggested that I might lose access to them, she was not threatening my pride. She was threatening the last thing keeping me connected to the world. So yes, I paid. My cousin Carol recognized the problem before I did. One evening, she arrived with a casserole and found me sitting at my laptop with my banking page open. Without being invited, she sat across from me. "Seth," she said gently, "how much have you given them?" I did not answer. "Grief can make good people say yes to bad arrangements," she continued. Then she placed her hand over mine. "Be careful." "They're my grandchildren," I said. "What am I supposed to do?" Carol did not have an answer. Neither did I. 2 days later, the third major request arrived by text. The roof was leaking. Water was supposedly entering Noah's bedroom. They needed to repair it before the next storm, and they needed the money by Friday. I read the message 3 times. A leaking roof in a house with a new truck parked outside. For the first time, I did not immediately reach for my banking app. Then I pictured water dripping into my 4-year-old grandson's bedroom, and I paid for the roof. Of course I did. A problem involving a child's safety was not something I could ignore. That night, however, I did something I had not done in months. I found a yellow legal pad and began making a list. First came the money for tutoring, then the dental work, supposedly major treatment for both children, then the roof. Between those larger requests were smaller ones. A school field trip, new uniforms, a car repair so Maddie could travel to a job I had never actually heard her mention starting. I added everything. Then I added it again, because the total seemed impossible. It was far more money than I had realized. Each request had arrived separately. A small amount here, a larger amount there. Spread across weeks and months, each explanation had sounded reasonable. Written together in a single column, the payments told a different story. That weekend, I drove to their house without calling. I told myself I simply missed the children. Noah ran to the front door wearing socks. His shoes sat beside the entry mat. They were the same shoes I remembered from months before. The toes were split, and one sole had a hole worn completely through it. "Buddy," I said as I knelt beside him, "what happened to your new shoes?" He grinned. "These are my shoes." He sounded proud, as though the holes were part of the design. I looked toward Lily. She wore the same old sneakers, their laces frayed and dirty. Then I remembered the expensive dental work I had supposedly funded. Both children smiled at me with the same little teeth I had always known. There was no sign that either had received major treatment. The money had gone somewhere. It had not gone to the children. Maddie appeared in the hallway while drying her hands. "Dad, you should have called." "I was in the neighborhood," I said. It was a lie. She hugged me, but her eyes kept moving past my shoulder toward the garage. From inside, I heard Trent speaking on the phone in a low, urgent voice. The same question stayed with me all afternoon. Where was the money actually going? I am not naturally suspicious. 40 years working as an engineer taught me that most problems have ordinary explanations. A leak is usually only a leak. A missing number is often a simple error. But engineering taught me something else as well. Good work is not based on guessing. You check. On Monday morning, I called Lily's school. I introduced myself as Lily Mallory's grandfather and explained that I had been helping the family with certain expenses. I said I wanted to confirm that the tuition and tutoring accounts were current. The woman in the office was polite. She checked the records. Mr. Granger, she said, there is no tutoring program on file for Lily. What about tuition? There was a pause, while I heard keys clicking. Sir, Maple is a public school. There is no tuition. I thanked her, then I placed the phone on the table very carefully. The way someone handles something fragile. No tuition, no tutoring. A public school. The first payment I had made, the payment that started everything, had been tied to something that did not exist. I remained at my kitchen table for a long time. It was the same table where Linda had told me she felt dizzy. It was the same table where I had transferred money to my daughter month after month. The thought that hurt most was not the money itself. Someone inside that house had invented reasons to take it. Someone had used my grandchildren to make those reasons impossible for me to refuse. The question was, who? Was Maddie, my own daughter, deliberately lying to me? Or was Trent giving her instructions, just as I had suspected when I heard his voice behind her during that first call? Part of me wanted to drive directly to their house. I wanted to place my legal pad on the table and demand an explanation. But 64 years had taught me something. Anger asks questions before it is ready to hear the answers. So I made a quieter decision. I would learn the whole truth before saying a single word. Carol was the smartest person I knew when it came to money. She had spent 30 years as a bookkeeper. She could find a missing penny in an account worth millions and refused to sleep until she understood where it had gone. If anyone could make sense of the pattern, it was Carol. I called her that evening. I need a favor, I said, and I need you not to judge me. I never have, she answered. What happened? I told her everything. I told her about the first phone call, the payments, the children's worn shoes, the supposed dental work, and the school that did not charge tuition. Speaking the details aloud made them feel heavier. It made them real. Carol remained quiet for several seconds. Seth, do you have records showing what you sent and when? Every transfer. I keep everything. Of course you do. I could almost hear her smile. Bring all of it to my house. Bring the statements, the dates, the amounts, and every reason they gave you. I'll build a timeline. Then we'll see what your side of the numbers tells us. My side? I can follow your money leaving your account, she explained. That part I can read like a book. What I cannot see is where it goes after it enters their account. Their finances are private. We would need someone inside that house to access those records legally. Maddie, I said. Maddie, Carol agreed. But not yet. First we examine what you have. I don't want to accuse anyone, I told her. The words mattered. Maddie is my daughter. If there is an explanation, I want to find it. I only want the truth. Then we let the numbers speak, Carol said. That is the right way to do this. During the following week, I gathered everything. I printed bank records and spread them across my dining room table. I sorted each transfer by date. Beside every amount, I wrote the explanation I had been given. Looking at all of it together, I felt the weight of how much I had handed over and how few questions I had asked. On Thursday, I drove the records to Carol's house and left them with her. 3 days later, my phone rang. It was Carol. Her voice was different. Usually she spoke quickly and directly. This time, she sounded slow and careful. Seth, she said, are you sitting down? I am now. You're going to want to stay seated. I placed my free hand flat against the table, as though preparing myself. Tell me. I built the timeline, she said. Every dollar you sent, every date, every explanation. Then I compared the dates with a calendar. She paused. Seth, every major payment happened within a day or two of a major game. Football Sundays, playoff games. The roof payment arrived during championship week. That could be coincidence, I said. Even as I said it, I knew I did not believe it. 11 payments? Carol replied. 11 games. That isn't coincidence. That is a schedule. A word settled between us. Sports betting. You think Trent is gambling? I asked. It did not sound like a real question. I think your money leaves whenever there is a major game, Carol said. I think the reasons you were given are excuses. Her voice softened. But I can only see your side. I can prove when money left you. I cannot prove where it went after it reached their account. I pictured Trent sitting on the couch every Sunday. I remembered his bouncing knee, the constant movement of his thumb, the celebrations, the sweating, the expensive watch, the truck, and the business opportunities that never seemed to become real. It's Trent, I said quietly. Probably, Carol answered, but probably is not proof. If you want something no one can dismiss, we need records from inside the house. The only person who can legally retrieve those statements is Maddie. My hand remained flat against the table. Then I noticed that it was shaking. For months, I had believed I was helping my grandchildren. I thought I was providing education, dry bedrooms, healthy teeth, safe transportation, and a better future. Instead, I might have been supporting a habit. Worse, I might have been supporting it through stories built around the children. She'll never believe me, I said. Not yet, Carol answered. Trent has her completely convinced. Then what do? We wait until she is willing to look. Carol paused. But Seth, prepare yourself for what we may find when she does. The numbers should have convinced me immediately. They did not. Not emotionally. Love can make the mind stubborn. For an entire weekend, I built explanations the way someone builds barriers against rising water. Maybe Trent had taken an emergency loan. Maybe he had a side business I did not understand. Maybe the game dates were truly accidental. Maybe there was another explanation. Maybe. On Sunday, I drove to their house again because I needed to see the situation for myself. I told Maddie I had brought groceries, which was true. I also told her I wanted to prepare dinner for the children, which was true. The house felt wrong as soon as I entered. The air seemed tense. Maddie's smile looked forced. Trent paced through the kitchen with his phone in one hand. The moment he noticed me, he pushed it into his back pocket like a child hiding something. "Seth," he said too loudly. "What a surprise." We ate together. The children talked constantly. The adults barely spoke. Every time Trent's pocket buzzed, his attention seemed to move somewhere far away. At around 7, he stood. "I have to go out," he said. "Quick thing, I'll be back." "On a Sunday night?" I asked. "Business." He was already pulling on his jacket. From the window, I watched his truck leave. Sunday night. Game night. While Maddie put the children to bed, I stood near the mail tray and refilled the napkin holder. I've always liked being useful. That was when I noticed an envelope pushed beneath a pile of papers. It had been partly torn open. The return address belonged to a collection agency. Through the envelope window, I could see one word. Final. I did not open it. I slid it back into the exact position where I had found it. My pulse sounded loud in my ears. A final collection notice was sitting in a house that had received thousands of dollars from me. Every explanation I had built during the weekend disappeared. I called Carol from my truck before I had even left their street. "It's worse than we thought," I said. "There's a collection notice in the house. It says final." "Then they aren't only spending your money," she replied. "They are deeply behind." We met the next evening. Carol had created a spreadsheet so organized that an accountant might have admired it, and a father could only fear it. One side showed every payment I had made. Another showed the dates and explanations. Beside them was a calendar of major games. "The pattern is even tighter than I explained on the phone," she said. "Look at the roof money. The entire amount arrived during championship week. Every major explanation matches a game." I stared at the rows. The money I believed had repaired a roof had disappeared during a single weekend. "And the collection notice," Carol continued, "may tell us something else. You could not see the amount, but a final notice usually follows months of missed payments. It may involve a large debt." "How large?" "I cannot see their accounts, so I would only be guessing. But this is the part that worries me." She tapped the spreadsheet. "You gave them a substantial amount. It was not enough to keep collection notices away. If your money could not fill the hole, then the hole is much deeper than what you contributed." I leaned back. Trent had created a financial sinkhole, and week after week, he had been placing my grandchildren's future inside it. When his own money disappeared, he had found another source. "Me. He must be borrowing from other people," I said. "Most likely." Carol hid. "How far does this go?" I asked. She looked over the top of her glasses. For once, she did not have a clear answer. "We won't know until someone with the legal right opens those accounts, but debt that large never stays hidden forever. Eventually, someone demands payment." I needed to understand my daughter's role. Was Maddie helping Trent create the stories? Or was she another person trapped inside them? That week, I invited her to lunch, just the two of us. We went to the diner she had loved as a teenager. I hoped the familiar booth might help me find the daughter I remembered. For a while, it almost worked. She laughed at one of my jokes. She stole a French fry from my plate. Then I asked, as gently as I could, "Honey, are you and Trent all right financially? I mean truly all right." Her expression changed immediately. It felt like shutters closing over a window. "We're fine, Dad. We're handling it. It's only that I've sent quite a lot of money, and I'm worried about where—" "It goes to the kids," she interrupted. Her answer came quickly and smoothly, as though she had repeated it many times. "Family helps family. Why are you making this weird?" There it was. The same phrase. The same tone. It sounded like Trent speaking through my daughter. "I'm not making anything weird," I said softly. "I'm your father. I'm allowed to ask." "Well, don't." Her eyes shone, but the emotion did not look like anger. It looked closer to fear. "Please, Dad, just trust us. Trust me." In that moment, I understood something. Maddie was not protecting herself. She was repeating what she had been told. She truly believed the money was helping her children. She had no idea that she might be part of someone else's explanation. Any anger I had felt toward her disappeared. Only sadness remained. I reached across the table and placed my hand over hers, just as Carol had done for me. "Okay," I said. "Okay, sweetheart." But nothing was okay, and I could feel that time was running out. "I want to be honest because you have stayed with me this far." Around that point, I almost stopped searching. Part of me did not want to know the rest. When you love someone deeply, the truth about their life can feel frightening before you even know what it is. That week, I understood a special kind of loneliness. I wanted answers, but I feared what those answers might cost my daughter. If this story is reaching something personal inside you, take a moment to subscribe so the next part finds you. Now let me return to what happened, because the numbers did not care about my feelings, and neither did the people waiting to be paid. Against Carol's advice, I tried speaking directly to Trent. I thought perhaps one honest conversation between two adults could change the situation. One afternoon, I found him alone in the garage, while Maddie had taken the children to the park. He stood beside a cooler filled with beer that, for all I knew, my money had helped purchase. "Trent," I said, "I want to talk about the money." "Sure." The easy smile appeared. What about it? I've been keeping track. The amounts, the dates, the reasons. Some things are not adding up. The school expenses, the tutoring. For half a second, something changed behind his eyes. Then it disappeared. He placed his drink down. Wow, he said. So what is this? You're auditing us now? I'm asking a question. After everything I do for this family, he shook his head slowly, looking hurt. I work constantly. I take care of your daughter and your grandchildren. And now you're standing in my garage counting every dollar as though I've done something wrong. I did not say that. You didn't need to. He moved closer. You know what, Seth? Maybe this is the real problem. Maybe you're too involved. Maybe the kids need some space from all this tension. The warning was delivered so smoothly that I almost missed it. Almost. Don't, I said quietly. Do not use those children against me. He raised both hands and acted innocent. I'm only saying healthy boundaries might be good for everyone. In less than a minute, he had turned everything backward. I had entered with reasonable questions and walked out portrayed as the problem. I was no longer a concerned father. In his version, I was a lonely older man, interfering in another family and creating tension over money. I drove home with my hands tight around the steering wheel. I was not frightened. I was finally seeing the situation clearly. The next Saturday, I asked to visit Lily and Noah. Maddie replied that they were busy. The following Saturday, she gave me the same answer. Then, another week passed. 3 weeks without my grandchildren. Every message received a variation of the same response. They're busy. It isn't a good time. Maybe next month. Each answer felt like another small door closing. My calls went to voicemail. I offered to leave gifts at the door and was told it was inconvenient. I understood exactly what Trent was doing. He had found my weakest point, and he was pressing it. The message did not need to be spoken. Stop asking questions. Keep providing money. Or stop seeing the children. I had never felt so powerless. I sat alone in that enormous house and stared at Lily's stick figure drawing on my refrigerator. Grandpa, written in crayon. For the first time since Linda passed, I felt as though I were slowly disappearing. I called Maddie one final time. By some small mercy, she answered. Dad, I really can't talk. I only want to hear their voices, I said. 30 seconds, please. There was a pause. Then I heard Trent faintly in the background. Who is it? The sound became muffled, as if Maddie had covered the phone. When she returned, her voice was small. I have to go, Dad. I'm sorry. The call ended. I remained at the table for a long time. Somewhere inside that silence, something changed. The grief that had made me easy to pressure did not disappear. Neither did the loneliness or the fear of losing Lily and Noah. But those feelings hardened around one clear decision. I spoke aloud to the empty kitchen and to Linda, wherever she might have been. You can keep my money away out of spite, I said. But you will not use my grandchildren as leverage. I would not beg anymore. I would not send more money. I would learn the entire truth and place it somewhere no one could hide it, twist it, or end the conversation before it was heard. The call I had been waiting for came close to midnight. It was not Carol. It was Maddie. Her voice sounded small and unsteady. Dad, were you asleep? I'm here, sweetheart. What happened? She took a long, uneven breath. I found something in the joint account. I was paying a bill, and I saw it. She stopped. Dad, the money. Your money. It doesn't go where Trent says. It leaves again. The same week. Every time. There's a name I don't recognize. Some kind of payment processor. I tightened my grip on the phone. Maddie, listen carefully. Your name is on that account. You have every right to access those statements. Can you print everything from the last 6 months? I already did. She gave a wet laugh that turned into half a sob. I've been sitting in my car in the driveway with the papers for an hour. I didn't know who to call. You called the right person, I told her. Bring everything here now, if you can. She arrived wearing pajamas. Mascara marked her cheeks, and she held a manila folder against her chest, as though the papers inside might hurt her. We spread the records across my kitchen table. There it was. Months of activity printed directly by her bank. Legal, clear, undeniable. My transfers entered their joint account. Within days, matching amounts left through the same payment processor. Money from the children's school fund had disappeared. A small medical account created for Lily had been emptied. I searched the company, Maddie whispered. People use the processor to add money to betting apps. She already understood. She had discovered it herself. All I could do was hold my daughter while the truth settled around her. This is not your fault, I said. You were lied to inside your own home. She wiped her face. Then something in her changed. It was the same kind of resolve that had formed inside me during those weeks without the children. I want everyone to know what he did, she said. I don't want a shouting match. I want the truth somewhere he cannot explain it away. I thought about Lily's birthday party on Saturday. The entire family would be in one room. I may know the right place, I said slowly. 2 evenings later, my phone rang. The caller surprised me. Dawn Mallory, Trent's mother. We had met perhaps 4 times. We had always been polite, but we were never close. I almost did not answer. Seth, she said. I'm sorry to call without warning. I didn't know who else might understand. What happened, Dawn? She released a long breath. It's Trent. He has been borrowing money from me for almost a year. He says it's for the house, the children, and getting back on his feet. Her voice became unsteady, but I learned where it's really going. Online. Betting on games. She paused. I lost my savings, Seth. My retirement. I closed my eyes. I had not been the only person he approached. I had not even been the first. Dawn, I said gently, you should know that he has been doing the same thing to me. He told me the money was for school, dental work, and repairs. Silence filled the line. It was the sound of two people realizing they had been standing on opposite sides of the same lie. My goodness, she whispered. Does Maddie know? She does now. She found the transactions herself 2 nights ago. She pulled the statements. I paused. She wants the truth brought into the open, Dawn. Somewhere Trent cannot talk his way around it. That poor girl. Then Dawn's voice became firmer. Seth, I love my son, but I cannot watch him pull his entire family into this and call it love. I won't. We spoke for almost an hour. Two parents who had both trusted the same person finally compared the stories we had been told. By the end of the conversation, something had changed. Neither of us was alone anymore. His mother and his father-in-law, Dawn said quietly, both told the same kinds of stories. If we stood together and showed everything, no one could call it a personal grudge. I pictured Lily's birthday party, a room full of family, my daughter ready to speak. Interesting that you mentioned that, I told her. I want to be clear about something because it still matters to me. I was not planning revenge. I had no desire to ruin Trent or shame him, simply for the satisfaction of seeing him embarrassed. That was not who I was. I had spent my life believing that the truth mattered more than cruelty. My plan was simpler and more difficult. I wanted to bring the facts into a room where they could not be deleted, hidden, or dismissed as the imagination of a lonely man struggling with grief. This time, I would not stand alone. Maddie would bring the bank records she had obtained legally from her own account. Carol would bring the timeline and explain the numbers, so no one could dismiss them as a father's suspicion. Dawn would bring her own experience as Trent's mother. I would bring the calm I had spent weeks building. 4 people, one truth arriving from 4 directions. I'm not going there to humiliate him, I told Carol the night before. I'm going so this stops. There is a difference, she said. Remember that if he feels cornered, people under pressure often react badly. I'll remember. I'd also decided one more thing. I did not want to leave Trent with nothing except consequences. I printed a phone number on one sheet of paper and folded it into my jacket pocket. It belonged to a support program for people unable to stop gambling. If any part of Trent truly wanted help, I would offer him a path. That was my plan. Truth, witnesses, my daughter standing on her own, and one open door. That night, I laid out my good gray shirt, the one Linda always said made my eyes look brighter. I spoke to her a little, the way I sometimes did when the house felt especially quiet. I'm going to make this right, Lynn, I said. I'm going to bring them home. On Saturday, in a room filled with people who cared about us, everything would either come apart completely or finally begin coming back together. Lily's birthday party was held at the community hall on Maple Street. The building had squeaky floors and a serving window connecting the main room to the kitchen. About 40 people attended. There were folding tables, colorful decorations, a balloon arch, and a glitter-covered banner that said, Happy 7th birthday, Lily. For a moment, I wondered whether Trent would stop me at the entrance. Then Lily saw me from across the hall and ran directly into my arms. What could Trent do? He could not ask a grandfather to leave his granddaughter's birthday party while 40 people watched. So he smiled. That smile. Seth, he said through tight teeth, glad you could make it. He pulled me into a hug and spoke quietly near my ear. Best behavior, right? Of course, I answered. I had brought Lily a real birthday present, something chosen only for her. She opened it and let out an excited squeal. The hall was filled with people who had known our family for years. Neighbors, cousins, old friends of Maddie, and people Linda would have recognized immediately. Near the back, 2 guests arrived whose presence made Trent's smile tighten. Carol carried a folder beneath one arm. Beside her stood Dawn, his own mother. A projector hummed near the far wall and displayed family pictures. Every few images showed Trent smiling at the camera. Food was served. The cake arrived. Then Trent did what Trent always did when people were watching. He found a microphone. Friends and family, he began with a wide smile. Thank you for coming to celebrate our girl. It has been a difficult year for us financially. That isn't a secret. A few people murmured sympathetically. But family comes together, he continued, and I want to thank everyone who helped us through it. His eyes moved toward me. The smile became slightly sharper. Especially Seth. Though I admit we've missed seeing more of you lately, old-timer. An uncomfortable laugh moved through the room. In one sentence, he had made me appear to be the grandfather who had chosen not to visit. I placed my plate on the table. It was time. Actually, I said as I stood, may I say a few words for my granddaughter? He could not reasonably refuse. Not at a child's birthday. Not in front of 40 people. His jaw tightened, but he handed me the microphone. The room became warm and quiet, the way rooms often do when an older man stands to speak about a child he loves. Thank you, I began. Most of you knew my Linda. She loved these children more than anything. I would do almost anything for them. I paused, and during the last several months, I have. I've helped this family financially many times. Trent relaxed slightly. He believed I was surrendering. He thought I had chosen to keep the peace. Then, I turned toward him. I only have one question, I said. My voice remained calm. The tuition I paid earlier this year. Which school was that for? Most people in the room did not understand the question. Trent did. What kind of question is that? He laughed toward the crowd. Come on, Seth. This is a birthday party. Lily attends Maple Public, I said. There is no tuition. There is no tutoring program in her records. I checked. Trent reacted quickly. Smoothly. He stepped closer and lowered his voice just enough for the nearest tables to hear. Everyone, I'm sorry, he said. Seth lost Linda last year, and he hasn't been himself. We've been very worried. Then, he gave me a patient, sympathetic smile. Dad, let's sit down. All right? It was skillful. In only a few sentences, he had changed the story. I was no longer someone asking about false expenses. I was a confused older man, overwhelmed by grief. For a moment, I felt the room move toward his explanation. Several expressions softened with pity. Pity for me. That was the moment everything could have gone his way. Then a chair scraped against the floor. He isn't confused, Maddie said. She stood. Her voice traveled clearly across the entire room. I'm the person who found it, and I brought proof. Every face turned toward my daughter. She held the manila folder in one hand. Her fingers shook. Her expression did not. These are our bank statements, she said. They came from our joint account. My name is on it, and I had every legal right to access them. She walked toward the projector. Then, she disconnected the slideshow, filled with smiling family photographs. Dad sent us money for tutoring, dental work, the roof, and other expenses. Her voice broke briefly. Then it became steady again. Every payment left our account within days through the same processor. It is connected to sports betting applications. I researched it myself last week while sitting in my car because I was too afraid to go inside. 40 people seemed to inhale at the same time. Carol stood beside her. My name is Carol Smith, she said. I worked as a bookkeeper for 30 years. I created a timeline. 11 major payments. 11 major games. The money arrived during the same periods every time. The pattern is clear. You have it wrong, Trent said. His voice was louder now. The smooth confidence had begun to disappear. Maddie, you don't understand what you're looking at. I understand perfectly, she answered. This is ridiculous. He turned toward the guests and held out both hands, searching for support. She's upset. She has been under a lot of pressure. Then another voice came from the back of the room. He took my retirement too. Dawn stepped forward. Her chin trembled. Her posture remained straight. For almost a year, she said. He told me the same kinds of stories. The house, the children, work problems, getting back on his feet. She looked directly at her son. It all went to the same place. I checked. I lost everything I had saved. His own mother had spoken. There was no easy explanation left. There was no story about a confused, grieving grandfather, large enough to cover both sets of records. Trent opened his mouth, then closed it. For the first time, his charm had reached the end of the road. Neighbors, relatives, friends, and people who had trusted him were staring in silence. Carol had warned me that pressure could bring out anger. Fine, Trent said. His voice rose. He pointed toward me. You want to do this here? In front of everyone? You think you're some kind of hero? Then he faced the crowd. You know what Seth did? He used money to buy his way into my children's lives. He gave them things so they would love him, and now he's pretending to be a saint. You asked him for that money? Maddie replied. You wrote messages for me to send because you could not keep the finances together without using him. Trent shouted. The room went still. Near the cake, Lily began to cry. A neighbor quietly gathered Lily and Noah and guided them into the kitchen, away from the argument. That was the moment Trent lost whatever sympathy might have remained. Do not raise your voice in front of those children, Dawn said. Her words carried years of a mother's disappointment. Trent continued anyway. His explanations came faster and sounded smaller with each sentence. He blamed the applications. He blamed unlucky games. He blamed pressure. He blamed work. He blamed his family. He blamed me. The more he spoke, the more clearly everyone understood. No one agreed with him. No one accepted the excuses. Eventually, he ran out of words. He stood alone in the center of a room filled with silent people. Maddie walked toward me. Tears covered her face, but her eyes looked clearer than they had in years. I should have listened to you months ago, she whispered. You listened when it mattered, I answered. That is what counts. I placed the microphone down and held my daughter's hand. Then I faced the person who had nearly emptied our family emotionally and financially. You were braver tonight than you realize, I told Maddie quietly, although everyone could hear. What he did belongs to him. What you did tonight belongs to you. His choices are not your shame. Speaking the truth is your courage. Never confuse those two things. Then I turned toward Trent. I did not raise my voice. After weeks of preparing myself, I did not need to. This is what happens now, I said. The money stops today. Every payment. There is nothing more available to you, and there never will be. Seth, I am not finished. My voice remained even. You will never use Lily and Noah as a price I must pay. They are not access I need to purchase. They are not a toll booth. Do you understand? He stared at me. They are not for sale. For once he seemed to have no prepared response. I reached into my jacket and removed the folded sheet. I held it toward him. He did not accept it. So I placed it on the table between us. That is a phone number, I said. It belongs to people who help those who cannot stop gambling. If any part of you truly wants to leave this behind, call them. I pointed toward the paper. That is the one thing I will still offer. Not money. A door. The room remained completely quiet. I will always support my grandchildren's future, I continued. I will never again support your secrets. Trent looked around the hall. He saw his mother, his wife, the bank statements, the timeline, the neighbors, the family members who would never view his stories the same way again. Then he picked up his jacket and walked toward the exit. The door closed hard behind him. The folded page remained untouched on the table. For several seconds, no one moved. Then I heard small feet crossing the squeaky floor. Lily ran into the room and wrapped her arms around me. I held her tightly. The party ended quietly. Neighbors hugged Maddie before leaving and politely acted as though they had not witnessed everything. Someone placed slices of cake into boxes. Dawn sat beside me for a long time. Two parents who had both trusted the same person finally had room to breathe. That night, Lily and Noah slept at my house in the guest beds Linda had prepared years earlier, just in case. After they went to sleep, Maddie and I sat at my kitchen table. She had stopped crying. She simply looked tired. Older. Clearer. The hardest part wasn't finding the records, she said. The hardest part was standing in that room. She wrapped both hands around her mug. For a second, I almost let him convince everyone that you were confused. I almost sat down. But you didn't. I kept hearing your voice. The numbers don't lie. She gave me a tired smile. 40 years of keeping ledgers finally influenced me. Then we examined the full financial situation together. The debt was enormous. It was worse than Carol had estimated. Once Maddie gathered the credit cards and loan records, we discovered obligations she had never discussed with anyone. Some loans had been opened in both their names. What do I do? She asked, while staring at the total. How do I get out of something this large? One honest step at a time, I said. And not alone. Never again alone. That became our new rule. No more financial secrets. No more sending money into uncertainty and hoping it reached the right place. But Trent's role was not over. A person like that does not simply walk through a door and disappear. He returned. Of course he did. The following weeks involved slow, ordinary work. It was not dramatic. It was the kind of work that rarely becomes the exciting part of a story, but often becomes the foundation of a better life. I helped Maddie become financially independent. I did not write more checks without knowing where they went. I had finished doing that forever. Instead, we created a plan both of us could see. We opened a new account in Maddie's name only. I arranged a modest monthly amount, specifically for the children. We purchased shoes that fit. We scheduled the dental appointments they had never received. We bought Noah a warm coat before winter. Whenever possible, I paid providers directly. Every payment was visible. Every expense was documented. You can see every dollar, I told Maddie, and I can see where it goes. That does not mean I distrust you. It means we handle money openly now. In the open? She agreed. No more secrets, Dad. Everything stays on the table. Carol helped her build a real budget. It was the first financial plan Maddie had ever used that was not built around hidden debt and changing explanations. Together, we contacted lenders. Some debts connected to both names would require a long effort to resolve, but for the first time, Maddie could see the size of the problem. She could see where it began and where progress might lead. The children returned to my life like water returning to a dry stream. Saturdays became ours again. Lily's pictures slowly covered my refrigerator. Noah shouted Goompa whenever I answered the phone. My house became loud in the best possible way. I will not pretend recovery was easy. There were difficult evenings. Maddie was grieving both a marriage and the version of her husband she had believed was real. But she was standing on her own ground. For the first time in a long time, that ground was solid. One evening, her phone lit up on my kitchen counter. I noticed the name before she did. Trent. The message said, please. One more chance. I've changed. He did not stop with a message. 3 days later, he came to the house. I was present because Maddie had asked me to stay. That request alone showed how much she had changed. The old Maddie might have met him alone and accepted every explanation. Now she wanted support nearby. Trent looked thinner and tired. I could tell he had practiced what he planned to say. Mads, he began. I know I made mistakes. His voice carried the familiar wounded tone. But I'm getting help. I called that number. I joined a program. He glanced toward me, watching for a reaction. Your dad's program. I said nothing. I had offered him a door. Whether he had actually walked through it was not something I could verify. I want to come home, he continued. We're a family. The kids need their father. For a moment, I saw the old emotional pull cross Maddie's face. 9 years of love do not disappear in one evening, even when the truth changes everything. But she did not surrender. If you are really getting help, she said, prove it. He stared at her. Months, not days, she continued. Counseling, separate finances, and you do not spend time alone with the children until I trust you again. Her voice shook. It did not break. Those are the conditions, Trent. They are not negotiable. I watched his expression. I saw the exact moment the irritation appeared. It was only a brief flash, but it revealed the person beneath the practiced speech. So I have to earn my own family back? He asked. Like a dog? Like someone who lied to all of us, Maddie replied. Yes. He looked at her, then at me. Then he did the most honest thing I had seen him do in a year. He turned and left. No pleading. No negotiation. No promise to prove himself. The moment the conditions became real, he walked away. A person truly seeking help accepts accountability. A person seeking easy access leaves when access is no longer easy. After that, he barely contacted her. An occasional message appeared, then longer periods of silence. I believe that when the money ended and immediate forgiveness was no longer available, he had little reason to keep returning. Maddie filed for legal separation that month. Her hands remained steady while signing the documents. I accompanied her to the lawyer's office and waited outside. When she returned, she looked lighter, as though she had placed down something so heavy she had forgotten she was carrying it. I keep expecting to feel sad, she told me in the car. And I do, a little. But mostly, I feel as though I can breathe. That isn't sadness leaving, I said. That is the lying leaving. Sometimes they feel similar on the way out. The debt remained. It would remain for a long time. But we had a plan. We had a budget. We had Carol checking the numbers. Most importantly, we had the truth placed openly where everyone could see it. Strangely, Dawn became a real part of our lives. She and Maddie grew close. They were two people who had loved the same deeply flawed man and lived through the consequences. Dawn spent time with Lily and Noah. She also began rebuilding what Trent had taken from her. Her progress was slow and determined. As for me, I had my Saturdays again. More than Saturdays. Maddie gave me a key to her door, freely, no condition attached, no payment required. The first Sunday after the separation, I joined them for dinner. Lily and Noah rushed me at the entrance. Maddie stood in the kitchen, cooking and humming quietly. Then I noticed something I had not experienced in more than a year. No one hurried out of the house at 7 for mysterious business. No one watched a phone with frightened eyes. No final notices sat hidden beneath the mail. The house was simply a house. It was filled with ordinary conversation, dishes, laughter, and peaceful noise. I realized I was listening to the sound of a family healing. That winter, I began teaching Lily about money. It happened accidentally. One afternoon, she found my old handwritten ledger on the coffee table. I had kept records that way for decades, and the neat columns fascinated her. "What are all these numbers, Grandpa?" she asked. "That is where everything goes," I explained. "Every dollar that comes in and every dollar that goes out. When you write it down, you can understand the truth." I bought her a small notebook and a piggy bank shaped like a round blue whale. Every time she earned a quarter for completing chores, we recorded it together. One column showed money coming in. Another showed what she spent. She treated those pages more seriously than some adults I had known. One afternoon, she sat with a pencil in her hand and looked up at me. "Grandpa, is money love?" The question stopped me. 7-year-olds sometimes ask the things adults avoid. I thought about Trent. I thought about every payment I had sent without asking enough questions. I thought about the difference between helping someone and allowing someone to drain you. "No, sweetheart," I answered. "Money is not love. Some people may try to tell you that it is. They may say that if you truly love them, you will pay. Do not automatically believe that." I tapped the page in her notebook. "But honesty helps love survive. Keep your numbers honest. Keep the people around you honest. Then you will be all right." She nodded with complete seriousness. At the top of the page, in uneven handwriting, she wrote 2 words. "Be honest." Noah was too young to understand our conversation. He sat nearby trying to feed crackers into the whale-shaped bank. I looked around the kitchen. My daughter stood near the stove. My grandchildren sat at the table. Late sunlight entered through the window and covered the room in gold. For the first time since Linda passed, the quiet inside my chest was not grief. It was peace. We had lost a great deal to reach that moment, but we had protected the things that money could never purchase. That spring, I visited Linda. I do not go as often as I probably should. The cemetery sits on a hill at the edge of town. On clear days, the entire valley is visible from her stone. I brought daffodils because they were her favorite. They always appeared too early in the year and seemed surprised whenever frost returned. I sat in the grass beside her and told her everything. "I almost lost them, Lynn," I said. He understood how afraid I was of being alone. I would have paid almost anything. I smiled faintly. "You would have understood him within a week. You always noticed things before I did." The wind moved through the new grass, but I finally understood. I followed the money the way I follow every problem, and I did not tear the family apart to do it. I did not scream. I did not make threats. I did not become like him. I touched the stem of one daffodil. I placed the truth where everyone could see it. I looked toward her name, and our girl looked. "She is strong, Lynn. Stronger than she knew. You would be proud of her." I remained there for a long time. The quiet felt good. It was not the kind of silence that had haunted my house after she left. "I used to think being gentle was a weakness," I told her. "I thought being willing to help was how he took advantage of me." Then I shook my head. But kindness was never the weakness. Kindness without boundaries was. I looked across the valley. You can love someone completely and still tell them no. I learned that too late to avoid the cost, but I learned it. Eventually, I stood. My knees complained the way they often did. I placed the daffodils beside her stone. "I kept the family together, Lynn," I said. "The way you would have wanted. By telling the truth and holding the boundary." I like to believe she heard me. There is a photograph on my refrigerator now. It hangs beside Lily's old drawing of the gray bearded stick figure. The picture shows the 3 of us sitting on the porch steps at sunset. Maddie took it during an ordinary evening that summer. Noah has a melting popsicle running down his arm. Lily is laughing. I look older than I feel and happier than I probably appear. There is no invoice between us. There is no price attached to my place. There is only a grandfather sitting beside his grandchildren while the day slowly fades. That is where my story ends. But before you leave, I want to step outside the story for one moment and speak as though we were friends sitting across a table. If anyone has ever made you feel that your love carries a price, or that you must keep paying to keep your place in someone's life, hear me clearly. You do not. You never did. Real family does not charge admission. People who truly love you do not send a bill for belonging. Creating a boundary does not make you cold. It does not make you selfish. It does not make you a bad parent or a bad grandparent. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is stop sending help into darkness and turn on the light. If this story meant something to you, leave a comment and tell me about a boundary you finally created, no matter how long it took. I read those stories, and I believe they help more people than we realize. Subscribe if you have not already, and look in the description for more stories like this one. Most of all, remember what Lily wrote at the top of her little ledger. Be honest. Keep your numbers true. Keep your relationships true. And never allow anyone to convince you that love arrives with a bill. Thank you for sitting with me.